All right, well, welcome. I'm happy. I'm here with Leksana from Fazeshift. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So just, I think as a start, which is really cool, I was on a prospect call, and they were, we were talking about, they wanted to start thinking about outsourcing some of their functions or whatever, and we were going through their tech stack, and they were raving about Fazeshift. So that's
Love to hear it.
Yes, that's how I came to know Fazeshift. So after I heard the way they spoke about that, which is rare, because we don't have normally.
Most people hate their software, their vendors.
You know, especially in accounting, you know, we beat up on our vendors. So anyway, yeah, I'm so happy you're here. I think I'm so happy that our listeners get to learn more about what it is that Fazeshift does, because we all have this problem with accounts receivable and collections and cash flow. It's a problem, probably one that we talk a lot about, but we don't attempt to fix it in different ways.
Yeah.
So maybe we start there, because one of the things that I was drawn to when you were talking about accounts receivable, we've historically looked at accounts receivable as in buckets of days, 0 to 30, 31 to 60. Then you get like the over 90.
Yep.
Around here, we have guys over 180.
Yep.
So it's like, that's really like, why is it over 180? Did you really send the invoice? So maybe we start there, just the way that just from a schematically, like big picture, how you are approaching AR and how to almost bring it to life in a different way.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're spot on there. And it's interesting because when you think about AP, everyone has a vendor and they just want a better vendor. But in AR, you don't see that. But AR is sort of the lifeblood of any business. Mm-hmm. It's how a business gets paid so that they continue operating. And it seems so fundamental and so mission critical. So we're excited to figure out how to tackle it. But to your point, traditionally people think about AR and aging as buckets.
Yeah.
How overdue something is.
Yep.
But that doesn't tell you how to resolve it.
Yeah.
Because you don't know why it's overdue.
Right.
And there is something so different about being able to say not like, hey, 180 plus overdue, but hey, 50% of your, or let's say 25% of your invoices never got delivered and the email bounced. Mm-hmm. The next 10% has a dispute. The next 10% we've already gotten remittance for, we just haven't received the payment. The next, and it's just this long tail.
That's awesome though.
And it's always just been very human manual, and people kind of keeping this in their head of like, oh yeah, I got an email from this person last week. Like I expect the check to hit this week. Oh yeah, maybe I should follow up with them if I never received the check so that we can re-get it. And it's just this all in people's heads. So we're trying to figure out how to get that into technology. And AI is actually really good about parsing data. And it's not Copilot, chat with AI. It's all about how you take all of this really messy data and get it into sort of a readable way for AI to act on it.
Yeah, there's so much we can dig in there, which is wonderful, and I'm so happy that you perfect answer, really, what sets us up well, I think, to talk about that, right? So, one of the things that, we've been challenged with to a certain extent is how AI is going to disrupt the office of the CFO.
Yes.
And I think there's some confusion right now as to what are some of the tools that are available? How do you deploy those tools? And what are those tools really going to do to transform?
Yeah, let me start with maybe the last one, and I'll start with a story.
Yeah, please.
Which is we have a current customer who their director of accounting actually came full-time onto Fazeshift, and he was like, I want to join you guys. I think this is the future. And so he's now full-time, but he was sort of reflecting on what it was like to deploy Fazeshift to his team. And I think he had a team of 13 AR specialists maybe. And he was like, my cash application lead told me after we deployed Fazeshift, she could go home to her kid at a normal time at the end of the day, feeling like she'd gotten everything done.
Yeah.
And I think that is sort of the difference. And as you think about where to deploy AI, a lot of the times I ask, CFOs a question of like, well, where does it feel like things are getting stuck? Where does it feel like you don't have visibility? Where does it feel like things are manual and people are spending a lot of time, and we could actually help unlock a lot of their time? So that's sort of how it's going to change things. But yeah, in terms of systems and deploying, we actually think AI is like very democratized. Like everyone's using OpenAI or Anthropic.
Yes.
What's really important is the data.
Yeah.
And this is where it comes to like, well, where does your data live? Mm-hmm. Is it in the ERP? Is it in emails? What bank accounts do you have? Do you use lockboxes? Like everybody's stack's a little bit different today.
Right.
Some are trying to sort of like consolidate and standardize, but data's everywhere. And so the question that we ask when deploying is like, well, where does your data live? And then can we meet you where you already are?
Exactly.
You have all of these systems. Let's just integrate to your existing systems, get the data. Then let's also figure out what manual workflows you want to automate, and we just marry those two things together, and we help automate really painful workflows.
I love that. So I've been thinking of this a lot, and I've kind of found a way maybe to communicate it in like three different ways of data, right? It's like data, the structured data, the data that we spent all of our time, a lot of that's in an ERP, let's say, right? The system of record, this is where they've spent millions of dollars, especially if they've gone to something robust, but even if you're using QuickBooks, you spend a lot of time getting that data and harnessing that data, okay? So that's your structured data, and this is I think the beauty of what Fazeshift does, which we'll get there. And then you have this other column, which I call the unstructured data, which is sitting in the emails. It's sitting somewhere, right? So now you can say, all right, you have some unstructured data throughout your systems, right? Then there's this third bucket, what a lot of people aren't talking about, and you brought it up. People's heads.
Yes. Tribal knowledge.
Yeah, tribal knowledge, right? So the way that knowledge has been passed down, the way they do things, every company has their own way of doing things. And then I think for the problem you're trying to solve, the accounts receivable is a sensitive one because it sits so close to the customer. Yeah. So that adds a whole different sort of layer.
Totally.
There.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, the example I like to use is we have a customer in the elevator services space. So they service any elevator when it breaks down, and they sell to Target. And Target has a very specific way that they need invoices uploaded into the portal with the correct documentation against the PO number. They have one headcount that does Target's invoicing, remittance, cash application, collections, because that is, and someone has just figured out how to do it, and they know how to do it, and they do it once a day, and then the next time someone comes in, they just teach the next person to do it, and then a new CFO comes in and is like, what the heck are we doing?
How do we even do that?
How do we do this?
Yeah.
And I think that's like a really big component, and it's why I think when we think of, and you've mentioned this, like historical systems are just like software systems. They're kind of like database wrappers. And then you have these new sort of AI agents, which is a combination of, I love your framing of like structured data, unstructured data, and then how do we learn how the people do it?
Yeah.
But also how do we bake in best practices? And I think this is where, you guys have been thinking a lot about of like, how do we take best practices across a bunch of different clients and then bake that into the agent? So not only we are understanding, okay, you sell to Target, you need this very specific process, but also let's figure out how to do best practices and implement that in the AI agent so that it's not just living in people's
heads.
Yes.
Yeah, and if we just frame that for a second, the people's heads, and we touched a little bit just on total addressable market is massive. Okay, I mean massive. I mean,
there is 1 million AR analysts in the United States.
It's unbelievable. I never realized the extent of the cost associated. And that's just the literal cost of employing people to do all of this, right? We're not taking into account all of the hidden cost.
Well, and that's what we see is you might have a team of, say, 16 cash application specialists. You have a whole other team of collections folks, and you still see lagging DSO, you still see 180 plus buckets, you still see unapplied cash backlog because those caches are not getting posted. And then you still feel sort of the leadership of the organization being like, why is this still reflected in our balance sheet in the way it is? And why can't we get our operations in order? And we've just been hiring more people. And I think that's where it's like, there's so much messiness in accounts receivable specifically that like, doing that at scale is actually really, really hard.
It's really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I could touch on that just personally here. I mean, which is really interesting because we were very fortunate that we have a person here in our operations, Carolyn. And Carolyn has a lot of tribal knowledge. Yep. She has the respect of all the partners, so she's able to move things, right?
Yeah.
So she got involved with our controller, Jack, who's wonderful, and we had this whole mandate. We had to reduce DSO.
Yep.
We had to reduce the whip days, whatever. And it's a Herculean effort. Yes. And just to get it down by a week, it took like a year.
Yep.
I mean, it's a massive, and that we still want to go better, do better and go further. But we're still, again, I think where you get trapped a lot of times, like you talked about, because you see the departments, you'll see they'll add a person to it, right? But the outcomes aren't changed that much. It's just what's really happening is showing that there's a lot of voluminous work in there, and they just, as the company's growing, or if the invoices have gotten more complex and the billing nature of what their customers are asking them to do on their behalf has increased, all you're doing is adding labor to just manage the problem, not necessarily fix the problem.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And then that doesn't necessarily scale.
Yeah.
Like we talk to businesses that are trying to double their revenue or acquire another business. And I think that's where we see sort of this like nervousness by the team of like our operations, our financial operations are not going to keep up if we keep growing and we double revenue and we triple revenue.
Yeah. The other interesting thing, just as an aside, because I was like just looking into this more deeply for our conversation, people, when they get frustrated, they use collection agencies.
Yes.
Which is another. I didn't even realize the cost there.
Yep.
And the turnover there, of course, like you can imagine, they're burning people out. But
it's between a collections agency or typically writing it off, right? But it goes back to your point of like, it's also very sensitive.
Yeah.
Like we hear this a lot where it's like, we treat customers differently.
Yeah.
Like we want to treat this customer that's 60 days overdue differently because we have a special relationship than this customer that's also 60 days overdue.
Yeah.
And so now there's nuance between customers. And like maybe there's a partner or an account manager that we need to loop in because maybe they have context. And so it just becomes sort of this like telephone game, but also like just very sensitive with the customer. And then like sending a customer to a collections agency can also burn a lot of bridges.
Totally.
So then you just write it off. And then of course that gets reported on and that doesn't look good either. So I feel like AR teams are just put in a really hard position and tasked with something impossible with not much tools. And that's, I think, why we talk about sort of to your question of like, what does it look like to deploy AI agents? We think of it as like, how do you give an AR team a superpower that they haven't had before to do things at scale? And the parallel is support teams. Like there has been Zendesk and Intercom and tons of different tools for support teams, like software support teams, to answer tickets and answer questions and hook up to the knowledge base and all of this. And AR teams have never really had tools that just like make their life easier and allow them to move faster and more accurately with the data all in one place. Like people have told us, even without the AI, having all of the data in one place is by itself so helpful. Yeah. And then the AI layered on top just gives them that extra superpower.
All right, so let's dig in a little bit. How do you guys help?
Yes.
Right, because I think this would be great. And then I can't wait to hear about how you got this started. But we'll start. I've been starting like bigger so people can really understand. Like this is we all have this massive problem with accounts receivable. We all want to get it better. How do we do that? How does Fazeshift help? So how do you help? So talk to about like. Somebody gives you a ring and says, "Hey, I've heard about you guys. Can you help me with my accounts receivable?" How does it start? What are some of the things that you've been learning along the way, and dealing with the sensitivities, knowing that there's a lot of companies that are saying, "Okay, we're touching the sacred piece of my business." How we've dealt with our customers and the billing and everything else.
Yes. Yeah. So we're full order to cash, and what we've seen in the market is that most sort of companies that have at least one person doing AR has some sort of AR problem they want solved. And our platform is very modular because we don't come in and say, you need the full platform. We come in and ask, like, where are your pain points? Different for every company, different for every industry. That could be Cash App. It could be collections. It could be I want to reduce DSO. It could be I want to figure out how we scale more efficiently. It could be I need to check my contracts against my billing events. It really could be anything. We need to run credit checks, and then we just plug in the module wherever they have that pain point. And usually with deploying AI, this is very sensitive. So there's sort of what we do internally, and then there's how do we deploy it. Internally, we have a no false positive approach. Specifically with Cash App, we cannot post the wrong payment to the wrong customer. It creates so much downstream implications. So we take a no false positive approach, and we have a lot of ways to do that. Basically, anytime the AI spits out a recommendation, we're doing a bunch of algorithmic triangulation checks internally. And then in terms of deployment, what we found is we actually start out with no automation. It's fully the human teams just see what the AI is recommending.
Okay.
It still saves them a lot of time. It brings, when you get a cash in the door, it brings the remittance email, it ties it together, and it shows you how it wants to post it.
Right.
And then the human person gets to hit approve. Everything flows through into the ERP, but there's this human in the loop.
I was going to ask you that. Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what it does is it helps people understand why the AI is making its decision, where it's getting the data, and starts to build that sort of trust of, okay, what is the AI feeling high confidence in? What is the AI routing to my team for the exceptions? And just starts to get them comfortable. And then usually what we see about 2 weeks in, which is faster than we expected, they switch the system to full auto. And so we're posting directly to the ERP and everything's fully automated. But they've built that trust. And I think from a deployment standpoint, we've seen that work really well. And they can always audit things. They can always come into the system. And as they use it, it learns. So it's sort of this it's learning how they would treat these things. So the next time we see a payment, the next time we see this certain situation, it would treat it just like they do. And that's how it builds sort of this company-specific context, sort of extracts some of that tribal knowledge, gets it into the system, and then people build a lot of trust with the system, and then they sort of see the aha moment.
Yeah. So, which I think is great, because I think a couple things there. One, it's really you're giving them a superpower.
Yes.
Right. So, again, a lot of conversations around, okay, what's AI going to do at accounting? The first thing is it's going to replace. It's just going to replace people. It's going to come in. It's going to do these things magically. It's a lot of mythical pieces out there that we want to, bring truth to.
Yeah, and I don't think we see that. I think what we see is that the job's actually just shifting to sort of more reviewing, approving, auditing, and changing strategic things. So for example, if the human team sees the AI is making a proposal and it's maybe not how we would handle an overpayment or an underpayment or how we want to write that to the correct jail or whatever it is, then the human can step in and be like, hey, and come to the Fazeshift team or whoever and say, hey, we actually think we should change sort of our process or how we account for this, make those decisions, and then sort of review what the AI is doing because of that change. And so it's much more about reviewing, approving, and also working on the high sensitivity ones. So if someone does need to pick up the phone, if we need to work with the sales team and escalate it to sort of finance leadership and figure out how we're going to handle this case. So it's just shifting. I think, the job.
And I think that's a great way to put it is that what's happening when we start to really think about, okay, AI, so many people I think we're stuck on that it's going to make things more efficient and just take out costs, right? But the reality of it is that we're not even seeing that even in our deployment, right? That's not what's happening. But what is happening is that you are getting more value out of what you're doing.
I think it's that, and you're getting value sort of at scale that you wouldn't before. And an example I like to use is I was at a conference and I had this Fortune 500 CFO be like, we've built the best ML models to do crazy cash forecasting, and it's still wrong every time. And I was like, well, yeah, imagine if you're probably getting thousands of emails to your AR department every day, and they have information in those emails. If someone sends you an email saying, I've sent this check in the mail, you should get it next week, that changes your cash forecasting, right? But your human team has not done that at scale because they're so focused on actually executing the work. But imagine if you have AI really just extracting all this data for you, and it allows you to use it in whatever way, whether that's cash forecasting, better sort of tailored collections, whatever you want, bringing that data together and turning the unstructured data into structured data for you to leverage is sort of what AI is really good at.
That's awesome.
Not sort of doing all this strategic thinking that I think now the team is able to do.
Yeah, so talk a little bit about how it connects to systems, how you do this.
Yeah, so this is unique to Fazeshift, and it's something we realized early on is that it's what we call at our company the swivel chair problem. Because the AR team is like, if you envision their kind of day-to-day, physically constantly swiveling their chair between all of these different systems. So they have multiple systems open. They probably have the ERP open, their bank statements, lockbox PDFs, Excel spreadsheets, AR inbox email, probably the CRM to figure out who the account manager is on the account. Like, you sort of get the idea. And so we were not like, I think traditional systems are like, we're going to transfer the data with flat file and we're only going to connect to the ERP. But one of my sales reps likes to say, imagine doing Cash App with only the ERP and not your email. It's like trying to do something with your hands tied behind your back. You're missing all of the data.
All of it.
All of it. So what we do is we actually combine that. So we go in and we plug into any specific system, ERP. It could be, Service Titan for the field services. It could be Lift Keeper for elevator servicing, Bullhorn for staffing, all of these different systems, and then we unify that.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, what we are is a context layer. We're building all the context. I know this specific customer in the ERP, is this customer in the CRM, is this customer and they send an email, is this customer and they make a bank payment, even though maybe their bank payment is actually under a kind of parent company name and it's not the real name that exists in the ERP. But once you build this context, then AI has all that context. All prior conversations, historical payment, trends in payment, how they pay, disputes they've made previously, and all of this builds the richer data that then both the human teams can see and the AI can act on. And so that's sort of our secret sauce is the data on the context layer.
That's awesome. And what I love, and I think, again, I'm hoping that we continue to see more conversations around this because it has to get there, especially diffused, I think, throughout accounting more.
Yeah.
Is that what we're really talking about, too, is we have an opportunity to capture all of this. That third channel we talked about, the unstructured data in people's minds, right? And if we can start to think of that as an institutionally grabbed data, channel, it's powerful. It's really powerful. I mean, it amplifies in so many different ways, right? Especially when you talked about when you have complicated ways of your business, which could be a lot of times where you have the salesman who is really the key, let's say, relationship person, okay? But the key relationship person at let's say at a local level, but the company sits at a national level, at a corporate level, right?
Yep.
So you have what national's doing, but you have to get the regional context or the local context. So you have to have a relationship with a salesman at that level. So there's all of these ways that of trying to capture that at the essence of really what's happening. And once you get a flavor of, because that from repetition from that local salesman at that. Over the years have developed a way that they do things, the AI will capture that. And that's not now sitting anymore in that salesperson who won't be there anymore. You're starting over, and it's just all of these things that make life more complicated for a complicated way you're already having to do business.
Yes. We go to companies that have to log into a ton of different AP portals. It's like Coupa, Ariba, all these even like long tail of portals. And they're like, well, we don't have like SOPs yet, like procedure documents about how to click the button, what documentation you need to upload, all this stuff. And so they're like, it's hard for us to train. I'm like, you could just take a screen recording, throw that into AI, and AI will create an SOP for you. And then you have SOPs for every portal, and then you feed that into Fazeshift, and then Fazeshift will do that portal stuff for you. And so just like AI can log into websites, it can click buttons, it still needs that sort of instructions from the human of like, here's the right way to do this, here's what to look out for. Just like you would train sort of a new analyst on your team, you can train AI like that too, and then it can take logging into hundreds of portals off your team's plate and have AI do it.
Right. So what are some of the ways that you've seen this evolve, right? Yeah.
Oh boy. I mean, to give you sort of an example, like we've had to rebuild certain modules within the platform because AI technology just keeps getting better and better.
Okay.
And the underlying infrastructure keeps changing, and which model is best for what keeps changing. And I think that's sort of on the responsibility of the vendor, and this is sort of what we tell people in the build versus buy decision, is the amount of upkeep that needs to happen because the underlying AI models and the infrastructure layer that provides some of these features continues to change over time. And that's sort of on us to keep up to date on the latest in AI, what it can do. Like when we went through Y Combinator in 2024, Vision AI, which is the technology that allows you to log into the browser, like go to websites, click buttons, fill in forms, submit invoices, download statements and remittance and all of these, just crazy. And it can do this like once a minute and just on repeat and doesn't get tired and does it in the middle of the night. It just didn't exist back then.
Yeah.
But I think the more we know about AR, the more that our technology team and our engineering team can fit that technology to solve the problem. And that's what we do. It's not about taking a technology and trying to force it onto a problem. It's about understanding the real depth of problem of AR and figuring out how we bring the best technology. And maybe sometimes that's not AI. Like all our collections workflow is not AI because people want to control the messaging they're sending to their customers because of the sensitivity.
Yeah.
So AI is not needed in every single thing that you do, just in the places that it adds a ton of leverage for the team, like turning crazy remittance screenshots into structured data and helping you match it.
It's really interesting, and I'm fascinated how you determine how to solve this problem, because it's a different way.
Yes.
It's very interesting how a lot of times somebody can look at a problem and you looked at the problem and you flipped it.
Correct. Correct.
I love that. So how did you get to Y Combinator? Tell us a little bit about the story, the background. I love the fact that Tim's the nuclear engineer or submarine or whatever it was. Like, background. All right. So let's hear how this came to be.
Cool. So Timmy and I, Timmy's my co-founder and CTO. We met at Harvard Business School. So that is how we know each other. Before that, I was in consulting at BCG. And then he actually started at MIT. So he studied computer science at MIT, undergrad and master's. He then spent 7 years as a nuclear submarine officer in the U.S. Navy, like on a submarine underwater. Wow. Then taught cybersecurity at the U.S. Naval Academy in Annapolis. And then got his MBA from Harvard.
This guy's incredible.
I make fun of him. I'm like, but you've never had a software engineer job before. How do you know?
Yeah,
but he's absolutely brilliant. He's the brains behind this sort of data context layer architecture that we built. Is he was like, we have to figure out how to get all this data into one place, and that's actually a really hard technical problem. But we got into business school, and we both knew we wanted to be entrepreneurs. Like we're builders, and I think so. He's computer science. I was mechanical engineering. I think it's the sort of engineering mindset of like, we love to solve problems and we love to solve hard problems. And so sometimes investors will ask me like, oh, did you grow up wanting to solve AR? And I'm like, no, no. I had no idea what AR was. But we are the type of people that love to solve really hard problems. Yeah. And this is one of those. So we went through business school, graduated, and we decided.
How'd you meet each other at business school? Were you on a project together?
We were in the same section.
Okay. So you had the cluster.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, I'll tell you what, because I went to business school too, and that's how my friends were in the green cluster. That's how we,
They do little pods.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
So that's exactly how we met. Is we went to business school during COVID, and it was interesting because they brought us on campus, but we were all taking classes remotely because it was COVID. And our section or our pod, instead of 90 people, was 70 people. So we basically I don't know anyone else that went to HBS except for my 70 people.
That was ours. Ours was 60.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Those are 60 people I know at NYU.
Yep. So that's how we got to know each other, and sort of took a lot of the same entrepreneurship classes at HBS. And then he convinced me to do our first startup right out of business school, raised our pre-seed round and did that startup, which was a crypto startup.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What year?
2022.
Oh, right at the forefront.
I know. Wow. So we ended up doing this crypto startup. And as we were doing this startup, we started to get customers and we started to get revenue, and then we started to have our own AR problem. And I was doing AR myself at the startup. And so we have such a personal connection to the problem we're trying to solve.
Yeah.
Because not only is it like manual and I had the spreadsheet, but it was, as a small business and as a founder, it was like embarrassing. Like I would forget to send invoices because one of our customers was quarterly billing instead of monthly billing.
We know that problem very well.
And everyone some people wanted to pay with credit card and some wanted to wire us the money. And so they were asking for our bank information. And then I had the sort of realization that just because they paid the bank, QuickBooks didn't know that they had paid the invoice.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I was like, how is that possible?
Yeah.
And then I was like, wait, I have to go into QuickBooks and mark this invoice as paid. And then, I see 3 invoices that haven't been paid. And I just felt like I didn't know what I was doing. And there were so many other softwares out there like Gusto and even like AP software and all these softwares that like kind of make your life easier. And then we had a great accounting firm that helped us. But it was like AR was still the thing that felt just very sensitive, very embarrassing, but needed to happen. And it was very manual. So I went to my co-founder and CTO and I was like, I think this is a bigger problem. And he was like, I don't think this is a problem. Like, I think maybe you're missing some software. Like,
yeah.
Maybe you had to talk to our...
Have you used Excel? What are you doing?
Or talk to our accounting firm and figure out how we should really be doing this. Because like, we're both outsiders. And I think that's the other thing that we bring to solving AR is we really are like sort of problem solvers, technology first people. We don't have an accounting or a finance background. And so when we looked at this problem, we were like, wow, this is a really hard problem. And then I was like, well, let me just learn as much as possible. So I cold called people and I was like, can you just tell me about your AR? I promise I'm not selling anything. Just tell me how your AR works. And I realized that there was no solution to this. And I was like, wow, these people have a really hard problem and they're trying to reduce DSO and they have a collections problem and all of these other sort of, strategic finance metrics implications. And so we pivoted and we got into YC with 0 revenue, and then it just has taken off ever since.
Well, YC must have been very interested in this problem.
Well, it's interesting because all of the founders in YC are all pre-revenue, so they have no idea what AR is.
Yeah, oh my God, how funny is that?
Gary Tan was our partner. He was the one that interviewed us, and he's obviously been such a successful investor.
He's great.
He's amazing.
God, I love reading his stuff.
Yeah, he's so smart, and he sits on a lot of boards.
Yeah.
And he's like, AR comes up in
all
every board meeting that I'm in. Like, I know how big of a problem this is. Like, and I can tell you guys build product really fast and are like really talking to customers. And he led us into YC, and we went from 0 to 100K ARR in 2 months, and we raised a $4 million seed round, and then we raised a Series A, and we've now raised over $22 million to date and have 35 employees across SF and New York.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's awesome. So, God, I can ask I could seriously sit here for like half the day with you. You're great. But there's so much to chew on. One of the things that's interesting, just that hit me with the crypto is, when you think about payments, it's such a hard thing to solve, period, right? So, you start, which is interesting, I think, ironically, that crypto, you were with payments, and just from payments, what you realize it's not just a payment problem, it's all of the back end, how payments get settled, recorded,
And it's spot on, and I think that's where sort of the historical AR players in the space. Like, there are a lot of, AR solutions that have come in maybe, 5-10 years ago. A lot of what they focus on is credit card processing because they're like, well, if we just make it easier for your customer to pay, then maybe that will help your AR. And it's a lot more of a passive sort of technology, not an active. How do we enable your AR?
By the way, we hear that all the time.
Really?
Just so when Gary Tan talks about the board and the issues of AR, we hear all the time is that, well, maybe if we just allowed them to pay by credit card, our DSOs will go down.
Logically, it makes a ton of sense. In reality, there's so many other reasons that we see it as they don't have the right PO number. It's not emailed to the correct person. It needs to go to the AP. It needs to be submitted to the portal. They need your banking information. They need your W-9. They need the like we have this in our own. We use Fazeshift internally. We get a lot of like, well, we need the contract before we can pay this so we can vet it. It's so much sort of back office, back and forth, and it just needs to happen.
Yeah.
Or else you're not going to get paid.
Yeah.
And 12% of B2B payments happen on credit card. The rest happen via ACH, wire, and check. That's just the reality of B2B payments. And I think people forget that like that's how people want to pay. You have to make it easier and more efficient for them to pay those methods. And a lot of that is just back and forth email communication. It's making sure they have the information they need and that we're communicating effectively back and forth with the AP department on the other side.
That was great that you just added that, 'cause I think a lot of people need to hear that.
Yeah.
That is B2B.
Yeah.
And that is the way things are done. And so
it's just operationally heavy.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it is. And I think when we first started this company, we went through the whole journey of, well, maybe if we make payments easier. And then we were like, that's not the problem to be solved.
Yeah.
The AP department will always still need a contract and associated the PO number and the W-9, whatever they need. But if we can make that a little bit easier for the team and a little bit faster and use best practices, then we can speed up payments. We had now he's an employee, but the prior customer who joined Fazeshift full-time as an employee, his prior company, they reduced DSO by 20 days.
That's a lot.
Not percent, days.
That's a lot.
With Fazeshift.
Yeah.
And it's just this operational. It's like he was like, yeah, we took this analyst and we saw he had 10x productivity on the things and we can sort of track it and help him improve what he's working on. And like that actually drives DSO improvement, not credit cards.
Yeah. And there's so many industries. I mean, the engineering industry is just so heavy with DSO because by the time you can get the billing and where we are, percentage of completion and everything else, there's just a lot of industries there. If you could ever reduce by 20 days, that's just a massive just shift.
And it changes how you run a business.
Working capital.
Right.
Yeah.
Because like if you can get that money in the door faster, imagine what you can do with that.
Right.
And for certain industries, like you're mentioning, there's some industries that really are run off of working capital. Versus like say like a technology SaaS startup that's VC backed might be a little bit different, but for like real fundamental businesses, they really care about that, especially ones that need to go buy other businesses or are thinking about an exit or anything like that. Yeah. Cash actually really matters.
And right now, especially today, where you have just an explosion of investments that you really need to be thinking of making, right? To stay competitive. But two quick things I wanted to hit on. When I was listening, so Matt Hart from Basis was on my Upstarts podcast, and he was asked the question, were you trained in accounting? And the same man was like, no. But which is great. I mean, that's hitting on this because this is what accounting has needed. Yeah. Accounting has needed attention from people like yourself and others, like the Matt Harps of the world, these other people that he was, I think he was at BCG too, by the way. But anyway, and he was trying to solve problems in the for opioid and like how certain regions, just real huge problems, right? But applying that same like contextual thinking to, well, all these problems exist in B2B and in accounting and everything. So having people like yourselves attacking ours, this is what we have long desired.
And I think there just haven't been many engineers that have found this problem. And I like to say like the best startups, in my theory, my hypothesis is the best startups are those that are the furthest degrees of separation from what a software engineer does every day. Because
that's interesting.
You know what a software engineer has never had to do? Cash application, collections, credit checks.
Yeah.
And so what they have had to do is, maybe build a billing system for sort of complex usage-based billing. And so you see a ton of startups doing the billing, but you don't see anyone solving sort of the fundamental operations, financial operations of accounts receivable.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we did is we sort of brought the like empathy of how hard this problem is because I'd had to do it myself, and then brought sort of this like, the genius that is Timmy to like, well, this is the problem. Put all possible technology, whether it's AI or not, against this problem. And we figure out how to make these people's jobs easier and like actually influence some of these metrics like DSO and write-offs and all of that. And he always is like, AR is one of the hardest jobs because it's like you're getting held against collecting a certain number. So you're kind of, in a sense, sort of like a sales rep, but you don't get any benefit from it.
Yeah.
You're just getting told, collect more money, collect more money.
It's really interesting, too, because for most of them, even the pain is, it'd be nice if they actually got a commission.
Right.
as to what. So think about it's one thing you have quotas on sales, right? Because
Yep.
then it's like, hey, here's your base. You hit these numbers, you get more. They don't get anything more.
Nope.
They just get like maybe good job. Now
Do
do
it
more.
Exactly. It's a hard job. And
It's
I don't
a
think
really hard
I don't
job.
think anyone's ever built like really purposeful software for AR teams. And I think as soon as we show them the demo, their eyes just light up.
Yeah.
Because so many other departments have sort of gotten, our engineering team has the tools for them, and the sales team has a ton of technology and tools and CRMs and add-ons to the
never
CRM.
thought about that.
But the AR teams have never
They
had
just
a purposeful.
grind.
They grind.
Yeah, that is tough. And turnover is not. I mean, it's a bigger number than most.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Right. This is wonderful. So let me ask you a question though on the YC thing real quick.
Yeah.
So just for I think would be interesting to see what was the biggest learning out of going through YC and why it's an advantage for a startup to get into like an accelerator type program.
Yeah. I mean, YC was just an incredible sort of catalyst for us to really get going. And the biggest learning is just execute and talk to customers. And like that, and I think so much of what Y Combinator does is like you have these pods and you're in a cohort. So we were Summer 24 and you're with all of these other founders that are at a very similar stage. And YC is not going to tell you how to build a startup, but it's going to sort of give you that oomph to go do the things you need to do, whether it's calling customers, emailing them, talking to them, walking around San Francisco, knocking on doors, posting on Reddit, just trying to understand the real problem you're solving and then just like execute. So when we were going through YC, we landed one of our first cash application customers, Clipboard Health, and we did it by getting their data. And then my co-founder and I pulled an all-nighter to figure out how to write a Python script that could do their cash application for them with no false positives. And it was just like, well, we were going to go into the office with Gary Tan tomorrow, and he's going to ask, what did you guys do last week? And sort of it's just this like part of startups is really finding a problem and then just like executing against it and continuing to build and iterate. And to this day, we're still constantly iterating. Like I said, we've rebuilt our
So that was a great
vision
discipline.
workflow.
So when you think about it, that was a discipline.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been thinking so much more about that, creating alpha.
Yeah.
Any business has to create some sort of alpha in what you do.
Yeah.
That brings you into a place that is a competitive advantage.
Yeah.
And what is that, right?
Yeah, and I think for us, part of it is like YC taught us to like move fast. Move fast, iterate, fail fast, try again until you have the best product on the market. And we have a lot of people that see the demo and they're like, you guys are the best product. And I think that's really helped us. And we go after the hard problems. And within AR, you could be a solution that gets 50% automation and then move on to the next customer, but you haven't solved their AR. You have to get to the like 95% automation at 100% correctness and accuracy to actually get to a place that you are solving AR at the level that makes an impact to their DSO and all these other metrics. And so it's a mix of like moving really fast, iterating fast, but also going really deep to actually solve the problem more than anyone else solves it. Because then, like, why would they leave?
Yeah,
you've solved their problem.
No, that's right. And how do you attack that? So let's say like you have a customer, and you start on a problem, and you've been iterating. So what from what I'm gathering is you have like the global sense of the problem, but then you're also attacking it individually for the customer itself.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Which is huge because I think that's what's been missing in accounting. Okay, has been a one size fits all, right? And so here you get your software, right? And you get the software, and then you get like maybe some training, and then you own that software for good, and everything that gets enhanced on that software in terms of how you embed it institutionally is really on your dime, right? So what's different about Fazeshift?
I think that is. And then, and we try to sort of educate our customers on this of like, that is the old model of software.
Yeah.
One size fits all, same features for everyone, works the same way. And if you need to customize it at all, you need to get someone to write,
Yeah.
NetSuite scripts
And that's and I just want to like double down on this because it really is important for people to understand this right now is that because this is how we've been so conditioned. We feel beaten down
yes.
In our profession because it's been a combination of more complexity, more work, less accountants to do it, but no real help from your partners that you have been with in terms of these companies that really were software providers, right? And there was a handful of them. I don't have to name them, but these were the ones, and you just felt beholden to them,
right? And whatever features they had and the way that they wanted to do it, and you had to just like handle everything sort of custom that you wanted. And what we found is like accounting and AR is different in every industry, and then even within the same industry, it's different per company.
Right.
And there are reasons why, and I've learned this as I talk to more accountants, is like there are reasons why they want to, do their accounting a certain way or write off to certain GLs and journal entries. Like there are reasons they want to do that, and that's the way they do it. And our system needs to be able to conform to the way that they do it today. And I think that's very different. So we have a sort of, it's very much a Palantir model of we have sort of this general product and platform. And then we have forward deployed engineers going to each of our customers and really understanding how do you want this posted back? Why do you do it this way? What sort of nuances do we need to account for? What sort of tribal knowledge do you have? And then sort of each customer's deployment is like very configurable and customized to their needs. And that's, I think, the new model of AI agent deployment that's very different from software.
Yeah, I think that is something I'm also going to clip here because people need to hear that because I think that's really going to help people and open their minds to really approaching this differently and to feel comfortable knowing that when they do embark on this type of a journey, that it's not going to be the same journey that they've experienced before, which has been one where there's been a lot of promises, a lot of things that they think was going to be doing on their behalf, but when they ended up doing is just no different here is, like when we, for example, tax, right? So for many years, you look at, you get a tech stack now for tax. And you would think, okay, well, that's got to make life easier. And it hasn't, and that's the thing. So when they asked this year, like they've done research around how was your busy season? The stats have been going down, right? So as the tech stack, you would think has been an improvement, but because it's really never fundamentally solved, like what you're trying to solve is at these three-dimensional levels, right? So you have the industry-wide problem, you have the company problem, you have the individual problem. Yeah, so beautiful. Now I have to ask you a question. So like as a builder, mechanical engineer, just some personal things real quick. Like, so have you always been driven? Like what I always love to like what's inside you that is your, like how did that start and when did you know that was in you to build? And were you like a Lego person as a kid? Like,
so I got into mechanical engineering because I actually grew up driving dirt bikes and riding ATVs.
Oh my God. Where'd you grow up?
Right outside DC in Maryland, so East Coast. And I just loved building. And my sister went the computer science route. So she actually sort of went the software engineering route, worked at Google, all that type of stuff. But I just loved building things. And the sort of reward you get when you build something that is useful and you can be proud of, that is what drives me. And then I went through school as a mechanical engineer. I then actually started a PhD program in mechanical engineering to do water desalination, which is essentially taking ocean water and making it clean so people can drink it. So I was like going to try to solve the world's like drinking problem.
Are they close on this? Don't solve a lot of.
They're trying. They're trying. But yeah, I ended up dropping out of that because it was just like too slow. I wasn't really able to like bring things to life. And then went to BCG and like loved it because we just like moved really fast. And I realized, oh, there's a lot of problems to be solved within a business. And like it can actually make a really big difference. And so that sort of problem solving and impact is like, someone asked me yesterday, like, oh, would you ever not do startups? Like, could you ever go back to consulting world or something? And I was like, I'm hooked now.
No,
startups are so fun.
Yeah. How do you, because that's the one thing I think that's very interesting about what what's happening now is people are okay with moving fast. Like there's people joining companies say, I want to move fast. I'm not into this static environment that has come about with COVID, right? And there's been this, and what they're saying is that Gen Z is definitely a different, approaching it very differently. So yeah, and so when you bring people in, are you seeing like they're okay with this? They want this, or is it something that
Yeah. It might depend on the person, but the types of people we hire at Fazeshift, we hire people that have empathy for the customer, and like we actually genuinely want to solve their problems. And I think when you have people throughout the sales organization, the product organization, engineering, everyone's sort of, and like implementation team, like everyone sort of rallies against that of like solving the customer's problems, and they feel urgency to do that. And I think that is something that a lot of like really, and I don't know how we keep that as we scale, because I know really big companies, you get further and further from the customer and then you don't feel that urgency. But when you impart on them, like we're solving a hard problem, we're solving a big problem, and our customers need this, and then we have customers that write us handwritten notes to the office because they're so grateful. Like that is something that you can kind of get behind. And so it creates this urgency for everyone on the team of like, we need to be better. We still haven't solved the AR problem. We have more customers coming on board. Let's put some urgency behind it because we can't let them down.
I love that you said that too, because I think the other thing you don't hear a lot of people talk about when they talk about their companies and stuff is the empathy for the actual person who you're trying to solve this for, which are all of the million some odd AR clerks who have been struggling each and every day. Every hour has been a firefight.
Yes, exactly.
So that's wonderful. Anything that I should have asked you that I didn't? Because I mean, this has been really good, but anything that you would have liked to have shared?
Anything that you want to add? Insights that you've sort of gleaned?
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, for me, I think what I'd want to know a little bit just on the agents, I think, because I do think there's a lot of learnings still be had there. What have you seen, which is some of the development of the agents?
So it's interesting because actually what so I went recently to a conference and we had a roundtable with a bunch of CFOs, and all of them had experience with Copilot. But that was sort of their limit of experience with AI. When we are building Fazeshift, we're pulling from maybe 10 different types of AI technology.
Okay.
All of them are different. And I think that's sort of what people haven't seen. So there is specific AI technology that's sort of like the next gen OCR. So it can take unstructured data. And what we mean by unstructured data to structured data is it can read a scanned check PDF really, really well. Where OCR would have broken, AI can now do that really well. So there's sort of that reading capability. And then it also has this sort of like thinking and tasking capability. So how do we take an email and figure out the 10 different tasks that need to happen off of this email? That's a whole other technology. Structured output is another one. So how do we take a PDF remittance and save it to a database in specific row format when the PDF is totally messy? It's another technology. The vision agents I was telling you about, so this is where agents can log into websites and do things. It's kind of the next gen RPA is one way to think about it. Totally different technology. Voice AI, totally different technology. So all of these things have sort of AI powering it, but they're sort of branching off from the underlying LLMs and finding sort of different use cases. When I say AI infrastructures is kind of what I mean. What Fazeshift does is we package all of this into a workflow. So Cash Application uses basically every one of those technologies I mentioned for different parts of the Cash Application workflow that we've now watched multiple humans go through this workflow. And we'll sit behind them and watch their screen and then figure out what's the best sort of AI tooling maybe. That's the right thing for that workflow. And that end-to-end workflow is typically what we call an agent, so like a Cash Application agent. With
that
a
was
human
excellent, by the way. Thank you for that.
Yeah, there's just a lot happening.
I keep trying. So just one last thing.
Yeah.
How when you think about you said before, which is something that I've been thinking hard about this. How do we educate our CFOs and controllers out there that have seen just the world through the Copilot, the ChatGPT, the Claude lens, And what you just said there is we need more of that. So people understand, like when we talk about agent, it's just not like, it's these multiple, there's layers of technology you're also aggregating, right, within the agentic workflow. But how do we, like, what are some of the ways that we could do this? Like when you say, okay, hey, their experience has been with Copilot, what are the conversations we need to have? Say, there's a whole world outside that, but doing it in a way that's going to be understandable.
I've been thinking about that for the past few months.
Yeah.
It's hard. I mean, I think it's sort of these, podcasts that you put on. I think it's spaces like this where we can actually talk about it, or just getting demos. Like there's a lot of vendors building in the space right now, and watching the demos and what AI can do. And at least it shows you the technology, but it also shows you how it can start to be applied in your day-to-day workflow and your team's day-to-day.
Because I think what you're talking about too, one of the things that will be really cool. And when I visited your office and seeing even the way that you train the AR, I mean, that is so. Just talk about that real quick, because again, just how you have thought about that is unusual to think that way, which is wonderful, right? The uniqueness of how would you create empathy. So talk about this, because I want to end on this because I think this is the brilliance of Fazeshift. Is the way that you attack this problem. We
have really struggled with onboarding new employees because most, if not all, new Fazeshift employees do not know what AR is. Mm-hmm. They do not know the day-to-day workflow. They do not know how hard Cash App is. And so me and my co-founder are just constantly trying to embed this empathy into them by explaining, this Cash App remittance that you see with hundreds of invoice line items used to take one person 3 days. It now takes them a minute. But actually getting them to feel that empathy is very different.
You're giving them the experience of sitting in that.
So we've played with sort of two ideas, and one was one you saw where we built a game, an internal game that new employees get to play that is essentially AR. And it's just them constantly getting bombarded with emails and payments and contracts and
the swivel chair.
And then as you know, when you play video games and the level gets harder and harder, and then you just start to feel more stressed and oh my gosh, more things are getting thrown at me. That is what we want them to feel, because then they feel the problem that we're solving very deeply. We've also toyed with the idea of making them all do our internal accounts receivable, but they'd be cheating because Fazeshift already does it for them. So.
They have a superpower.
Yeah,
but what the brilliance of that to me is, it's you can have a mission statement on a wall that is embedding that into the organization. That's phenomenal.
Yeah. We got to solve AR.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Caitlin. It's been wonderful. Looking forward to doing it again. This is going to be quite the journey, and we're just beginning. They always say, "What inning we are in?" I don't know, but we're at the very beginning.
That's right. Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. That's a wrap on This Week in Accounting AI. If you found this useful, make sure to follow us on Spotify. Smash that follow button on our show page, and on Apple Podcasts, tap the plus sign and leave us a quick rating while you're there. I'm Paul Peterson. See you next week.